Hello, guys. Good evening. Good evening. How is everybody? Well, if you've not been here before, my name is Elizabeth, and I am your friendly hillbilly host. And this is Hillbilly Crime. We've got Sweet Tater here with us, getting all fancy and pretty for the
Yeah,
camp.
I was fluffing up my hair.
Yeah, you was doing a little fluffing. That's all right. Welcome, viewers. So tonight's topic. Did anybody see what it is? So, tonight we're gonna talk about beacon of hope or fraud. So if you looked on the thumbnail for this evening's video, there was a photograph of Tim Robinson, who is the CEO of ARC. And he apparently had been awarded the Beacon of Hope Award by Hal Rogers. Isn't he our congressman?
Yeah. I think he's a senator or something to U.S., isn't he?
I think he's a congressman. I get those confused sometimes. Who's a congressman and who's a senator? But I think he's our congressman.
Yeah, I believe you're right.
Now, Hal Rogers is also one of the founders of SOAR, the Shaping Our Appalachian Region. That's what the acronym stands for. And they are a huge nonprofit that was started with Hal Rogers and the governor. And one of the things that they tout, what they're good for, is making connections with companies, businesses, government, city governments, county, whatever. They're kind of like matchmakers. And they have made a ton of matches in this area, supposedly for the good, of course, using technology and innovation to move the region forward. I don't know if it's necessarily anything that like they're goal oriented about, but where the coal mines shut down and so many coal miners ended up out of work. A whole lot of them took opportunities for like retraining in a different industry.
And they went to school.
They went to school, and there's been some businesses that they only hired ex-coal miners. But anyway, all right, so we're going to do a brief recap real quick of the Mickey Steins and the Judge Kevin Mullins case. We're going to try and look and see how all of this is connected, the different forms of misconduct that we are seeing, more accusations and claims of. Something that I also wanted to point out too is that a lot of these stories, this behavior has been happening for a very, very long time around here. And not just around here. I'd say it's been happening for a long time everywhere. We see it in the celebrity circles. We see it in the school circles, the educational field. Lots of teachers, especially female teachers, if you notice, there's a whole lot of female teachers getting in trouble for inappropriate relationships with students. But so all of the men who are the big players in our good old boy system and our good old boy circle, they're starting to get kind of old now. So Judge Mullins was 54 when he passed away, I think is what they said. Mickey Stein's 43 or 44. I think Daniel Dotson was probably in his 70s, I'd say. He probably just wouldn't want anybody to know that. But he's an old man too. A lot of these men who are in these positions are older now. And a lot of the stories that are starting to come out are from a long time ago. So kind of like in my head, the ones that I'm hearing anyway, the people who are coming forward to me, you know, they've most of them's clean now. They're on their feet. They've got their lives together, and they don't want to come out publicly and be part of this embarrassment, which is very understandable. Mom, you chime in here real quick. Let me let my dog in.
Okay. Well, yeah, they all get old, and they set the precedent for those that are under that will follow their example and learn how to shortcut and how to take advantage if they want to. I'm not saying all people do, but they learn the behavior. It's acceptable.
Well, and, you know, we got to remember a Smex drive is a normal part of life, right? Most everybody has one.
Well, I don't think that has anything to do with that. When you victimize somebody like that, that's a thing of power.
Yes.
You can make somebody do this thing.
I just mean, by saying that, I'm not trying to minimize anything. I'm just saying that it starts out pretty much innocently. You know, people will flirt. I mean, we are human beings, right? So people flirt. They start flirting around. They might be attracted to each other or whatever. But when you work in an official capacity as a jailer, as a sheriff, as a judge, as a counselor, as a police officer, as a case manager, as a teacher, as a coach, you should not be crossing the line with anyone who is in a more vulnerable position than you are.
Anybody you're the boss of, more or less, you know.
Absolutely.
You don't think of the boss being the jailer and the people in jail, but they really are. You hold the power over them.
Yes, it's power and it's control. Okay, so September the 19th, Mickey Steins, former sheriff of Letcher County and former bailiff of Judge Kevin Mullins, went into the courthouse and got into somewhat of an argument that's been reported in the judge's chambers, and he pew-pewed the judge 8 times, unaliving him.
And there's video of that, so that's not much speculation.
It is not a whodunit. It is a why did you do it? But I think more things are starting to come out now. The reason why that this case is bigger than just one red rum are the layers of corruption, the cover-ups, and the systemic failures in our justice system and in our local justice system. Well, I don't necessarily know if it's local or just local. I'd say it's everywhere, but
I'd say there's a lot all over.
Mm-hmm. this
It's
behavior.
probably epidemic in our country.
Epidemic is the best word. Thank you, Mommy. Let's see. Everybody's in here. Good evening, everybody. Dina Gage. This cat's not going to quit meowing until I let her.
Well, I tell you, these dogs are something else. I got 3 dogs and 4 cats, and it keeps me busy cleaning up after them and running around trying to feed them and letting them in and out.
I'm telling you, I've got this little talky kitty cat. He cries and he's just so loud and vocal. Let's see. Redheads Roost. Hey, y'all. Donna Haynes. Hi, Dina. Donna Haynes, everyone. Crystal C. Good evening, everybody. Welcome in. James Powers. Hi, everybody. I will be in and out of here today. Dog hydrotherapy. Doctors in a Zoom meeting. All right.
Hydrotherapy.
Well, I had a dog one time that had gotten bit. My dog
snake?
He'd gotten in a dog fight, and it had really bad wound on her neck. And the vet told me to use hydrotherapy on her wound. She said every day take a water hose and let the water wash out the infection. So I don't know if that's what she's doing or not, but it really, really works. And peroxide. I found peroxide is a great medicine for wounds, dog bites. Anyway, hello, y'all. Have you hit the like button? We are shooting for 1,000 likes on this video. I tried to hit 1,000 last night, and we hit about a little over 500. So we're halfway there. Y'all help me with the likes tonight, please. Okay, Wheels, I respect you for respecting your mama. Well, thank you. I sure do.
She does all right, but I can't get her to cut my toenails at all.
She's fibbing. I haven't cut her toenails in a while because I haven't been over there. But
well, that's why I said that. I want to make you feel guilty.
She used to make me do it all the time. Hey, y'all. Good evening. Good evening. Yes, hit the like button as you come in, please. I like your top, Sweet Tater.
Yeah, it's yeller.
Only 32 likes. Y'all get our likes up some.
So the sun was so bright today that I needed something to match it.
Oh, well, good. You worked on that. Hal Rogers is 87 years old. My point exactly on term limits. There's no sense. There's absolutely no excuse. There's no reason for a 90-year-old man. It's the same, my opinion, and we're not doing politics. Let me squeeze this in here too. So we are not. I just want to. Mama Duck is working on something for me to read to everybody, but we don't want to get into no party politics. What we want to do on this channel is help teach people about civics, about our government, about our rights as citizens, and how we learn about what's going on in our government.
We can't learn about what's going on because the newspapers don't report it, and there's not much local news anymore. So there's some still, but it's going to be even less. So you need things like this that can focus on your rights as local citizens.
Mm-hmm.
And you can think about what about what the people that are in the Justice Department around you are up to.
Absolutely.
And if they don't want you talking about them on the internet, then they need to get another job where they're not in positions where people are watching them and looking at them.
That's right. That's right. You can't expect all the praise, when things are going good, but then not take the criticism when things aren't going so good.
I wouldn't want the job of a policeman.
Heck no. I used to feel so bad and rejected because I couldn't get a job with any of them people. They just wouldn't accept me for nothing. I was stiff armed every time I went to even try and talk to any of them. And it hurt me terribly. Like, that was one of the hardest things I've ever had to do, was work that long in school and do that well as I did in school, and then just be so rejected everywhere I turned. That was a very difficult thing for me to say, okay, I've got to give this up. This ain't going the way that I...
Well, you haven't given up yet.
Well, no, I did. I gave up trying to be in that circle and be accepted.
I know, but everything is in a circle. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, yeah. Well, my point to that is that now I'm, once I got through all that and I got over it and all that stuff, I got on this side of it, and to be able to look back and see what God protected me from by not opening those doors. I'm so thankful. I'm so thankful that I never worked in that. I'm so thankful. Senator has to represent the state Congress in local and cities. Okay.
He's a representative I loved.
Oh, is he a state representative, not a congressman? Yeah. Okay. A representative.
He's a congressman, but he's a representative at the national level. So he's called a congressman.
Okay. Representatives and senators are both referred to as congressmen. Well, that's why they call him Congressman Rogers. Yes. Oh, man. Thank you, Crystal C. Thank you, honey. That makes you our stream sponsor. So just to let anybody know that's not familiar, one thing that we do with our stream sponsors, whoever gives the highest super chat or super sticker is our stream sponsor, and you get put on the ticker. And then if somebody beats you off, then we put them on there as the new stream sponsor. So thank you for your super chat. All right. And I included my email. I had a lady this evening send me an email, or well, I talked to her this evening, but she had sent me an email, and she said that it took her a minute to find my email. And so I'm going to put the email in the ticker too. So if any of you all have a hard time finding my email, it'll be at the bottom of the screen. Anything that you would like to share with me, anonymously, of course, you are more than welcome to. I am a one-woman show, so nobody else but me sees any of my emails, messages, any of that stuff. Nobody else sees that. All right. So, what is the big question here? The central question for tonight is, why did the Kentucky Attorney General stop at Deputy Ben Fields? When you have this much carnage, you have this many rumors, you have this this large amount of, well, I don't even know what to call it. probable cause? Is it probable cause to go and at least investigate? So we had the Kentucky Attorney General, do his investigation for the criminal case against Ben Fields. Ben was convicted. He signed a plea bargain that pled him guilty to the R word. He pled guilty to tampering with an ankle monitor system, and he pled guilty to perjury. The perjury charge was given to him because he swore out escape warrants on his victims, on Jennifer Hill. Well, I don't know if he swore it out on Jennifer Hill, but I know that he swore it out on Sabrina Adkins. But I'm pretty sure he did it to both of them at some different point. Denise Felton. Now you're asking the right question, Elizabeth. Why? That's right. Why did that? Well, excuse you, Zelmy.
Oh, okay. My bird's big and loud.
I don't think you even realized you did it, did you?
Well, I didn't know anybody would hear it.
All right.
Listen, won't it?
That's okay, honey. That's okay. Is there a pattern of retaliation against whistleblowers? Well, we also saw in the I guess we saw it in the civil suit that Ned Pillersdorf filed. It's in the civil suit that when Jennifer Hill's boyfriend went to the sheriff's department, well, first he called and tried to report Ben and what he was doing to Jennifer Hill. He was hung up on, I think, if I remember that correctly. So he went in person to make the report. Well, when he went down there to report it in person, he left, and it says, I don't remember how many times it was, but it was either 3, 4, or 5. He got pulled over that many times after he left the sheriff's department trying to report Ben. He stated, or it states in that lawsuit, that he was pulled over. I think it actually named Deputy Norris as one of them, and a female. And then he said that he got pulled over by somebody driving a red, I think it was a Silverado truck. And so I asked around, what officers down there or law enforcement person drives a red Silverado truck? Well, so it looks like the answers that I got was somebody said that allegedly the chief of police in Whitesburg has a red truck like that. And I think they said Norris might have a truck similar to matching that description. So it's untelling. It says in the civil suit that, if I'm remembering it correctly, that several times that they had pulled him over to threaten him and warn him to stay quiet, that they were talking on their cell phone to someone and on the radio, like the vehicle radio, their work radio. So, I mean, that tells you right there that they were talking to somebody about them pulling him over. In one of the people that pulled him over reportedly said, we've been talking about this all day. This is hot topic at the sheriff's department. You trying to report this. Well, this is not the only example that we have of people trying to come forward. And if you think about these women, I also spoke to somebody who told me the story of their child, their daughter, and how when she was young, they were associated with these people through sports. And one of them works as a law enforcement person. And it was alcohol. We think that it's rugs, right? We think that people corrupt women with rugs all the time, but it's not necessarily always rugs. If you think about the young people, what is it that they want to do? They're not addicts yet. They haven't become addicts yet. They're still children. They're still living, they're under 18. They're still living at home with their parents. But what if sometimes kids, when they have the opportunity to drink alcohol, if they're around parents who will let them drink, that's like the big thing. So we've got claims and reports of this gentleman giving them alcohol, these young girls. And from what it sounds like to me, they all ended up alcoholics, which then led to rugs later on in their life. But when you have to live with that trauma, you live with the guilt, you live with the shame, as the female that was used as a, cheap piece of meat for a whole 5 seconds for a dirty old man. Then men don't have to live with that. They're not the ones living with the guilt and the shame. They're the ones trying to cover up all this behavior now. And,
All right.
All right. I just love watching this channel. Well, thank you, Miss Peggy. Thank you for being here. The politicians are working for the citizens, and their salary is paid by the citizens' tax dollars. They need to understand. Well, every time I see it on TV and somebody says, "I pay your salary," they go to jail. You are a fancy girl and your mom to 2 beautiful women. Well, thank you, Cupcake. He was 2 years ago. I forgot what we were talking about. 2 years ago. All right. LS, it's gossip. They probably thought it was just gossip since the tapes were never produced. An accusation without evidence is nothing. Well, yeah. But they still had enough to at least investigate it. They had enough to say, there might be something here. We might need to look at this a little bit closer. And they didn't do that. They just said, okay, well, at least this is what it looks like they did.
Well, they didn't have anybody to report it to. There wasn't anyone they could report it to that would be interested in investigating it.
That's what I'm saying. It was their job to investigate this stuff.
But they've tried to cover it up because they're too deep.
Elizabeth, do you know how that one gal passed away that had the lawsuit? They said she OD'd. But I question that. I would like to see a talk screen. I'd like to see what her autopsy produced. What was the level in her blood? Was it 9 times a fatal dose, or was it, was it more?
Probably got some of the F stuff.
Yeah, but at least if we were able to see that information, it would not so much. And I said this too about the talk screen with Mickey. It doesn't just prove the presence of, it also eliminates, so if you felt like maybe somebody was dosing him, or maybe he was accidentally exposed, well, if we had a talk screen to show he didn't have anything in his system, well, then that just blows that theory right out of the water. We can eliminate that. We can take that off the table. There was nothing in his system. But if you don't have one, period, well, that just fuels the rumors. It fuels the speculation. It fuels the questions. Why not do one? I mean, it wasn't like they couldn't. All they had to do was ask the judge to sign a search warrant for it. And it seems like it would have been pretty simple to do. Please hit that like button and the subscribe. Yes, thank you. We don't know if the tapes have surfaced now. In the hearing on discovery, the prosecutor said as evidence collected. Tapes was a word he said as evidence. Multiple phones, they pulled evidence. Well, what I have heard, what I have come up with on the tapes part. So apparently this man named Chad, he was a rug reeler. Chad Brown, I think was his last name. He was supposed to have these tapes. When they asked him, when they did finally get a hold of him and they asked him if he had tapes showing that, he said no, that he had an audio tape of Judge Mullins. It wasn't a video, it was an audio, but he was not interested in turning it over. His lawyer had it. What are you doing, Zelmy?
I'm digging for stuff.
Okay.
Sorry.
Well, you're right up in the camera, honey.
I know, they can look at you.
But so he has the audio, not the video, is what he says. And he's not interested in giving it over, which I don't blame him. If I had something, I sure wouldn't be turning it over to him either, because you'd never see it again is what my fear would be. But so that's what has been reported with that situation. Now, what I have learned in my own digging around and asking questions, I've spoken to several people who know Chad and who have been friends with Chad. And they said that this was something that he did regularly. And it's not just him. A lot of men, and maybe women too, who knows, but a lot of men are into recording themselves and recording themselves with, their partner. If you think about it, that is very, very common these days. Everybody's got a camera on their phone. Everybody's got a phone. And, or no pay, my pig Latin for you all, is a very common addiction for people, especially professional people, I think. So who knows? We don't really know about that part of it. But from what I've been hearing, a lot of this stuff, like I said, remember, these men have gotten a lot older here, in the last several years. So their libidos might not be as big, and they might not be doing it to the extent that they were 20 years ago. And back then not everybody had a phone. Not everybody had a camera. We didn't have technology like we do today. I'm talking about
the video makes their bragging rights.
Right. And what do people, a lot of people who deal in essay material, they trade that. They trade them. Here, look at this. Look what I got. Look what I did last night. Look who I found. Look who I finally got a piece of. You know, I mean, it's not a classy thing that we're talking about here. He apparently wasn't investigated because the tapes could not be obtained by law enforcement, but that wasn't the only source that there have been rumors about this stuff for a very long time. You had Ben Fields admitting to what he was doing. They had enough to look deeper, and they didn't. And that's okay. We can agree to disagree. You don't have to agree with me on that. That's perfectly fine. I still love you. Cheap piece of meat. That's right. Hello, Miss Jerry. That's what I'm talking about. They have more evidence than the public will ever know. Remember, it was said copies was passed around. People have brought out evidence to prosecutors. There's also been lots of claims there have also been claims about other people. It wasn't just Mullins. She said in that interview, Sabrina said in her interview that it was Ben and higher ups. And then when he pressed her on it, she said, Judge, but he didn't press her any further on that. He didn't ask her about anybody else. That's where my point comes in about if they would have had a female detective that was trained with victims and women who've been sex trafficked, and they can't tell us that they didn't have one because they have a task force. They have a sex trafficking task force on the Attorney General or under the Attorney General's umbrella. So they had access to it. Why did they send Matt Easter for that interview? Why did they send him? I mean, apparently he did a great job with Ben. But if he would have done, if it would have been somebody different and they would have been able to interview her in a way where they could have gotten clearer and more concise answers to a lot of these questions, I think it would be in a completely different place today. I think that investigation would have went in a different direction. I mean, we're very glad that Ben got convicted, but I just feel like it was a sacrificial lamb. You plead guilty because he pled guilty to every single charge that they charged him with. It doesn't seem like there was much of a negotiation at mediation, not on the charges. It looks to me like the negotiation was on his sentence. And then somebody made a comment and said, well, Sabrina's had to have okayed that. She's had to have signed off on that sentence. Did she have any choice?
Why would she have to sign off on it?
Well, they sure didn't ask the victims of Patrick Little about his sentence. They didn't have them sign off on his sentence because they were outraged over it. I don't think they have to have them sign. And even if they did, what choice did she have?
Well, in the big murder cases cases on TV, sometimes they do that.
Denise says true that addict named Ben and that judge. And she said Ben and the higher ups and some of the higher ups. Why no investigations? I'll never believe that woman was OD'd. Well, back to that, my comment on that. I just think I would like to see the levels. Was the level, whatever she OD'd on, what was the substance and what was the level? Was it within like a normal range of a dose, or was she given a hot dose? Was she, was the levels in her system 9 or 10 times a fatal dose? Well, I mean, that would at least be an indicator. It might not be, aha, but at least it would be an indicator. Did she have something in her system that was something she was known to take, or was it something that she didn't even take? Those kinds of questions would be, in my mind, next step and normal. But it don't look to me like they did any of that. I thought they asked the guy Sabrina named, the one who had the tapes. He denied having tapes or something like that. He denied having videotapes. He said he just had an audio tape. If he denied having tapes, what more could they do? I mean, that wasn't the only source, though, that they could investigate. At the time of Fields, and remember, this guy said he had an audio tape. He just didn't want to turn it over. Well, does that mean that the investigation stops? Or does that mean I got to try and find another avenue to find what I'm looking for? I mean, but I could be wrong. At the time of Fields, the guy told them he would not give any evidence tapes that he supposedly had. That's an insurance for anyone having copies. Now it can be used as evidence in this case. Good point. I didn't mean to delete your comment. Her hair would show length of exposure to all different substances. Well, that's a good point.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking about when you was talking about that while ago. Your hair is a good source.
It's like a fossil, ain't it? Your hair.
Well, it contains little bits of this and that.
We will never know the truth. It's all corrupt. I agree, Howard Robinson. I agree. 100 in the bushes. It got pretty warm here today, too.
I got in the 50s, I think.
Rhonda says, Chad being bad. Dang, you have got to be kidding me. Geez, recording schmecks. Good Lord. Julie Cook says, I'm confused. Mickey was deposed on Monday before the incident. Ben's case was done. So what case is Mickey deposed for? Wasn't it the feds? No, he was deposed for the civil suit. So Ned Pillersdorf, Sabrina Adkins, who's one of the victims, I have no idea how she hooked up with Ned. But Ned is one of the go-to lawyers in this area. If you have a case and you need an attorney, he's usually the one that people try to go to first, that's out of this area.
Well, we have a lot of people around here, that are turned sort of like I am. And if she'd come to them, they would have, there's places where they go and talk. She could have gone and talked to a counselor or, like a...
Well, I don't agree, Mommy. I don't agree, because around here, any lawyers that you go to around here and you try to take a case to, if it's...
I'm saying that there might have been people told her to go out of the county.
Oh, yeah. I agree with that completely.
Because they would have known, people that she could have talked to, would have known, or she might have just known somebody that knew where to go.
I personally think old Janet Stumbo, Miss Janet Stumbo herself, had something to do with Ned taking that case. I might be wrong. Probably.
Now, who is she?
She's Ned's wife. She was like the first woman to be appointed to the Supreme Court in Kentucky or something like that. So she's kind of a really big deal.
Well, I'm sure that she may have got word of it. And, people might ask me what to do, and I'd probably say, Lord, I don't know. Let's see if we can find you somebody that'll give you some advice.
Well, regardless, the way that I kind of took what the interviews and stuff that have been given with Ned and Sabrina and all of them, what I kind of put together from all of that combined, was that Sabrina was looking for criminal representation. I thought she was looking for a lawyer to represent her, against a charge. And it ended up being Ned. And whenever she told him what all she was going through, he must have taken the case. Now, I could be completely wrong on that, but that was just my perception of all of that I had heard. But so
we're all so connected in these days that, if you start digging, you can find an avenue.
Yeah. Well, so this is
I bet it wasn't easy for her to find somebody. She had to go to it. She had to go to the lengths.
Well, I don't believe she would have found it. I've said this before. If Ned didn't take this case, I don't think anybody would have, because I just don't think anybody would have. It would have been too hard for anybody to try and prove it. I've never had an attorney that went out of their way to try and help me in any way. They just kind of show up in court and they know the process and the legal process, so they know what to do. But if you don't give them the information or whatever, then they're just going to do the best they can. So, I mean, that's where my lawyer friend told me, you've got to really interview lawyers, because there's lawyers that are not worth their weight. They might have passed the bar, but they're not winning much in the courtroom. But so Ned sent a request, and I don't even think it was Ned who first sent it. Whenever I was going through all those documents, it looked like one of the other female attorneys. I don't know if she was a coworker of Ned's or if she was in a completely different law office, but she sent a report or an investigation request or something like that to the Kentucky Attorney General's office. And per one of the interviews that Ned gave, he said that he's never really had them jump and try and help him when he's filed a civil rights case, civil suit. So he said that in this case they did, which surprised him. So the Kentucky Attorney General's office started investigating Ben Fields and the house arrest and the ankle monitors, and they charged Ben because he confessed. Whenever they went and interviewed him, he gave it up. Ben Easter did give him buddy real good with him and got him a confession. So in the civil suit, they also named Mickey as his supervisor, Ben Fields. He's also named in the suit, saying that he did not properly supervise or train Ben Fields. And after Mickey went and pew-pewed the judge, now the civil suit is put on hold until they find out what happens with the criminal case. And so if that answers your question, Miss Julie. Ben was sentenced. I think he was charged 2 years ago. I think his sentence wasn't very long ago. I think he just served his sentence, not like maybe a year ago or something, less than a year ago or something, if I'm not mistaken. And then the deposition for the civil suit was on that Monday before the 19th. That was 3 days before Mickey went up there and pew-pewed the judge. And I really think that they're right about this pressure and stress being such a factor in this case. I think that I think we can put a lot of weight into what his attorney said in that last interview the other night, that Mickey was in fear for his life. He was in a very fragile position where he had information, paraphrasing here, and he was afraid that he was going to say the wrong thing that would implicate other people, or he was afraid, or he was afraid that he may have already said something. Now, I don't know if this was going to be like the only deposition he had to sit for. Like, do you know how that works? Probably not, do you, Mom?
No, I don't know how it works, but I'm thinking that he didn't have to go back again. I think that was the end of it.
Who are the higher ups that Steins was afraid of implicating? We also have to remember that Edison Banks just passed away. So he was a player all the way right up into all of this stuff. He just passed away like in November or the end of October. So Mickey had already went up there and pew-pewed the judge whenever, and then Edison passed away a couple months later. And I believe he was up to it, to his eyeballs. Edison Banks with Taylor Pratt and all them rugs and the traffic stops that she got away with. You know, dirty old men, even on their deathbed, they've still got egos, y'all. Sheesh. Yep, he took the fall. People keep things for an insurance policy. Absolutely. It's a way to keep others on a leash. Many people video now when approached by police for their own use.
Absolutely.
Police, judges, and the system. Absolutely, honey. Mullins and Ben aren't the only ones involved. Many more higher-ups are guilty, no doubt. As a victim, you don't get to sign off.
But the thing is, there had to be some financial gain. And the financial gain came through the incarceration into drug facilities. Those are not non-for-profits.
No.
Those are for-profit facilities run by companies.
Yep.
And the state or the federal picks up the tabs for those girls or guys. But it seemed to be mostly girls that were being sent. Now, I might know a few guys that have been sent.
Well, treatment and recovery became the cash cow for this area. I remember when all of these medically assisted treatment programs and clinics started coming in. Pull it down some away from that fan.
Well, they started being more popular where people were using them and talking about them. And before that time,
it was working. How many people, and you know this, how many people, once they started taking that medication, it changed their lives and it changed their families' lives?
Well, that may be, but I was talking about the situation that we had.
I'm talking about the way that they abuse financially. So whenever they opened these clinics, they were supposed to take people's insurance. But down here, they didn't have any oversight. They didn't have anybody.
They didn't have any insurance except the medical aid that people had.
Most people had Medicaid, but what did they do? They started out, everybody had to pay $400 a month to go to your visit, and you had to have 2 counseling sessions a month, and they would usually hook you up with their counselors. And I'll just tell you, everyone I ever had, I ended up being their counselor. We had one lady that was hired with a master's degree as in something, and was a counselor, and they ended up popping a rug test on her down there at the clinic when I was there one day, and honey, she lit up like a Christmas tree. She was one of the biggest users down there, and she was the counselor.
Well,
so
she obviously had a problem.
So many times, these counselors that are part of the program, that's not where these girls who are struggling with PTSD of the big R word and sexual abuse as children and stuff, it's really, really hard for them to come up and talk, because the turnover rate is so high. They can't never keep any of these counselors. Well, some of them probably do, but a lot of them, they can't keep people in their positions, and so the patients end up having to have a new counselor every time they have an appointment, and so they can't never really get close enough to their counselor to be able to trust them and open up. I mean, it's a really, really difficult situation. Let's see.
But there are people that get through it.
Absolutely. How does this mirror, or we was talking about, is there a pattern of retaliation against whistleblowers? I think there is.
I think there's a retaliation against any form or kind of whistleblowers. If I go tell your husband that you're running around on him, you're going to come after me. That's retaliation.
Absolutely.
And I mean, it just goes right down the line to where
it's the chain of corruption.
It's like you got a secret and this person knows it, and they're going to go tell somebody your secret.
Well, it's just like an informant. They use informants all the time.
And if they can get to them, in the big places,
But where do they not have very many rats? The thin blue line. They don't never tell on each other. And if they do, if one of them does tell on each other, then they're committing the biggest sin ever was.
Well, they're closer than families, because they feel that they need this person. They need this circle so that when they're out there doing something, they're surrounded by buddies.
That's right. Nobody that's going to question them. Nobody that's going to challenge them. And everybody will have their back and pretty much do what they say. The deputy. This is the chain of corruption. You've got Ben Fields with his crimes, abusing his power over the ankle monitor system and the women that were in it. You've also got the sheriff, Stein's failure or complicity in supervising Ben. The judge, Mullins's alleged personal involvement with rehab kickbacks and sexual exploitation. So this is something that has been floated for a while now that I don't think has really gotten much steam. And it's what financial gain does the court system get from having a community liaison in their courtroom? Michael Clark was a community liaison who stayed in the courtroom And whenever people were ordered to rehab or needed to go to rehab, Clark would coordinate their bed, their open bed.
He probably got a salary.
He absolutely, yeah. They bragged he'd already paid for or bought a home and all this stuff in a very short amount of time, I might add. But it was Michael Clark the only community liaison that they had? Did ARC have more community liaisons that were placed in other county courthouses, or was Michael the only one?
Well, there would have been probably one in each court.
Well, you'd think so. That's my question. Did they hire more community liaisons for other counties?
If they had this ARC system, I bet they did, of having the people that are criminally charged go to rehab, try to get them off of drugs, to educate and rehabilitate instead of punish.
Well, I don't think they did. I think Michael Clark was the only one.
Well,
I don't think they had a liaison sitting in every courtroom, every district courtroom in Kentucky.
Maybe not.
And so there have been many rumors that ARC bought somebody a new truck and, just all this stuff. Well, I wonder, follow the money. Was there any kind of financial gain that was on the part of Letcher County in any way? Whether it was the judge putting the butts in the seats or in the beds? Was it the sheriff's department? Did the sheriff's department get any kind of reimbursements for the travel, the expense of taking these defendants to rehab? I think that's a really good question. I just wonder who all was profiting from it. Okay, so let's see. Who showed up when the girl OD? Who possibly was there before or at the time? Well, those are good questions. We don't know any of the answers to those. None of that information has been released that I'm aware of. They might have unalived, so she would not have where she could take more of the higher up in court she knew was involved. Well, the fact that Jennifer Hill was no longer alive whenever he pled, whenever he signed the plea bargain, that he wasn't charged with as much. They said that his charges were fewer, and I'd say it would just be different counts. He'd have more counts of it if there was more than one person. But we saw that with Patrick Little's case. Patrick Little is a businessman, a prominent businessman in this area. He was charged with 44 counts of sexual abuse for 2 children, one under the age of 12, one under the age of 16. Whenever they negotiated his plea bargain, they dismissed 42 counts, and they only kept 1 count of each. I forget what they were, but they only gave him 2 counts. They dismissed the rest because they said that all of them would run concurrently. And so it would just, yes, go ahead.
Time for me to go to bed.
All right, Mommy. We will see you tomorrow. Have a good evening. Love you.
Love you.
Bye. All right. We'll have Sweet Tater back tomorrow. Do you know if she was cremated or not? If not, they need to check into her. I think so too. I don't know. I don't know if she was cremated or not. The Attorney General's investigation. Why did it stop at Fields? That was the last point of my chain of corruption here. It's not the first time a messenger shows up and bad things happen. You are right. When he said he had audio tapes, they could have gotten a search warrant, surely. Just saying he had the tapes corroborated Sabrina's statement. Yep. I think so too. If someone injected her with something, there are laws about that in some states. Absolutely. And all this stuff nowadays, y'all, you don't have to do that. All they have to do is touch it, and it can be lights out. Lower elected official was proud of the video of him and a higher-up's wife. Hubbs was watching, was shoving it in people's faces on his cell. Listen, I've heard a lot. I've heard a whole lot of things like this. And one of the swinger pair that I was talking about last night, you know, I say it was an open secret, but it wasn't a secret. The only way it was a secret because decent people don't like to repeat what they were doing. That's what it just boils down to. Several people, men, have told me that they would pull up and he'd say, "Oh, she's not here right now. She went to the store. You wanting your turn with her?" And then he was talking about his own wife. I mean, listen, if people even had an inkling of the immorality and the unethical behavior by professionals, by elected officials. But this stuff's been going on forever, just behind closed doors. There's poker houses all over Eastern Kentucky. One of them in Neon that's not there no more. Used to, they wouldn't let females even in the door because they'd had so many fights because men would bring their girls in there and sick them on a certain person. And so the dude would lose all his money because he had some hoochie hanging all over him. And people got really upset losing their money. You got to think about how much money we're talking about here. This ain't no $3 Annie. I love to play cards. Used to. But we'd have a whole bunch of people that would show up and we'd play $3 hands. You know, everybody put in $3 in the pot. Winner takes the pot. They don't play like that at these games. It's not just the old folks. Consenting adults can do whatever, but don't flash it. Absolutely. You can do whatever you want, unless you're in charge of somebody who's in custody. Unless you are an authority figure. Unless you are with someone who is unable to consent because of age or, like prisoner status. And I just don't know how people sleep at night, y'all. Women, it's not just women, it's vulnerable populations. It's vulnerable people. Children are vulnerable. Addicts are vulnerable. Patients are vulnerable. Students are vulnerable. Anybody who is in a a lesser place, a weaker spot. Y'all know what I'm trying to say. Perhaps one of the best things that we all could do is devote some of our time to researching places that we could recommend for the ones needing treatment be able to go to besides ARC. It's a good thing. Good comment, Miss Betty. Good idea. Well, so let's also look at the original. Who was the original? Does anybody remember Operation Unite? Y'all remember Operation Unite? Operation Unite was a task force that was put together for law enforcement when the opioid crisis hit, and they decided to they really, in my opinion, really started using informants in that era. You had father turning against son. You had daughter turning against mother, turning state's evidence against each other. Whole families that either ended up in the graveyard or the prison. She was a little snoozy, wasn't she? I can't imagine the AG inspectors didn't interview Mickey during Ben's criminal investigation. I think they did. But there wasn't any audio of it. To the best of my recollection, it was just a written report from the detectives. So they had they had spoke to Edison Banks on the phone. Edison sent them to Michael Watts. Michael Watts, for any of you who don't know, we don't really talk about him a whole lot because I don't think there's a whole lot to talk about with Michael. Michael I love Michael, and I love his daddy, Mike Watts. Now, somebody else might have a different opinion. They might have a different experience. But my experiences with Michael and with Mike have always been very positive. They've always been very helpful. And they've always been very sincere. I've had wonderful experiences with both of them. And I might add, when I needed them. When I needed their help and I went and asked for their help, they helped me. And neither one of them was shaking a pill bottle at me or nothing. You know, the dirty old men are everywhere. They're in law enforcement. They're in our court systems. They're in our schools. They're in our families, unfortunately. And then the community, we end up, when these people do these things, then we end up having to be the ones to then deal with it and learn to adjust around it. You know, like, they don't want you to talk about any of this stuff. Oh, well, they're going to write an article in the paper, but nobody's going to talk about it, so it'll go away. Enough time, people forget about it and won't even remember it. That's the way they're used to everything working and happening. But let's see. Sorry, y'all. I didn't mean to get off on that tangent. Wonder why I didn't do rug and drinking tests that would answer some questions. I know. Oh, okay, Kraft. He's going to be acquitted. Well, honey, he sure has a real good chance of it. I'm anxious to see what comes out in court. There is a couple decent rehabs. Discovery Works is in Georgetown, Kentucky, and has 3 facilities. One is in Elizabethtown. There is a recovery place in Corbin. North Kentucky has great places. Contact Street East Hospital. They had a couple years ago, they had the Independence House in Corbin that was a good 30-day rehab. And then they had one in Prestonsburg and Paintsville called the Lane House. And they took an old motel and turned it into a rehab facility. And it was a great little rehab place. Though I don't know if they're still there or not. They have a long-term facility in Lexington called the Chrysalis House for women. They had the Hope Center for men. These are facilities that people are oftentimes court ordered to. And in some cases, we all know with addiction, people don't get clean until they're ready. Whether they're court ordered or not, whether they have children or not. It just is one of those things. So if they're court ordered to rehab, sometimes that helps. Sometimes they were forced to go, and in the being forced to go, they got clean. Unfortunately, a lot of times that doesn't work. They may stay clean while they're in there, but then as soon as they get out and go home, they relapse. A lot of times you have people who are working in these rehabs. Remember, this is how they employ people, right? They go through the treatment and then they give them a job. Well, when your treatment center is run by everybody who's in recovery, well, depending on what stage of recovery they are in matters. Usually they say they call it 13th stepping. The original 12-step program. Well, the 13th step is two addicts in recovery hooking up together. They recommend addicts not get in any relationships until they've been sober for a year or longer. That's a very, very good suggestion because usually when you have two people in recovery that end up in a relationship, it doesn't usually turn out very well because then you have two people's luggage trying to deal with it. And if one relapses or messes up, usually they'll take the other one with them. And then before you know it, you've got two people who have bonded together through their addiction. And it's not very healthy. It's not a very healthy relationship. And then there goes your recovery right down the tubes. And the Hope Center, it's very needed. I'm not criticizing it at all, but you end up with a whole lot of homeless because it's a homeless shelter is what it is. It ends up so the men can stay there at night, I think is how it is. But like at 7:00 in the morning, they got to get up and then they kick them out the door. Let me let my dog in. And then they have to stay outside of the facility for the rest of the day. They have to go to AA meetings and hit so many in a week. And, it's really, really a hard life to live. It's really hard, y'all. Community stalking and harassment are alive in rural Kentucky. Big business. Well, it's becoming that way. It makes me wonder, is that what was happening to Mickey? Was Mickey, was he feeling like people were after him? Was he seeing people following him? I would like to know those questions or know those answers to those questions. If you want to know the best places, call St. Elizabeth Hospital. They have help get new facilities, separate men and women units. North Kentucky, they cannot take an addict to jail. They get in treatment ASAP. That's good. Yes, Mickey was interviewed. So I think it said in there in the written report that so he called Edison, then he called Michael, and Michael sent him to who did Michael sent him to Mickey. And Mickey had put together some stuff, I guess, whatever paperwork and stuff that he had to give to the detective, he gave him. I think Mickey even said that once he had gotten informed of it the second time, because see, Mickey was told about it the first time and he denied it. He even came out in an article in the paper that I read that said, you know, this, I've heard this, but I don't believe it. He has been a veteran of the sheriff's department for 10 years, and he's never had any kind of accusation of this nature against him before. And so Mickey didn't take any action the first time. And then apparently the way that I remember it, which I could remember it wrong, but the way that I remember it, he, whenever it came back around and was brought to his attention again or something, he put together whatever documents, anything that he had, and he was turning it over to them for the investigation, or he was requesting them investigate or something. But it was on the back side of it. You know, he had already been told, it had already been brought to his attention. And then if what the boyfriend said was true, then, you know, you had 3 to 5 deputies or some form of law enforcement then engaged in threatening and retaliating against Jennifer's boyfriend for trying to bring forth the accusation. You are the real deal. Been there, got the t-shirt out of all true crime shows on her. You're top-notch trustworthy. Well, thank you, Miss Rhonda. I'm a-trying. I'm a-trying. Did you know Ashley Harmon? She was a rug counselor in Corbin, Kentucky. I don't know, honey. I know faces better than I do names. From Tasmania. Hello, Jill. Smash that like button, y'all. Yes, please. I want to try and get 1,000 likes on this video. So if you've not hit it, please hit it. Even if you are on the replay crew, smash that like button for me, please. I finally watched the Karen Reed trial, and the lead investigator was so disgusting. Yes, Miss Tracy. Yes. I've seen it on a couple times, this new trial that they're trying to start, but I done watched the first one, and it was so disgusting. I just don't know if the second one's going to be the same way. I'd be snitching right and left. Wouldn't trust them to have my back. Well, from what I heard, Mickey was absolutely terrified of the state police. He wasn't afraid of them at the Leslie County Jail. He was afraid of the state police. And if we remember how that dash cam video played out, y'all are gonna trade me off. Y'all are gonna give me off to somebody. Who you handing me to? Who you handing me off to? Made me think that he knew how they had done in the past. Made me think about how whether he knew or suspected, but it made me think, is that how they've done it before? Whenever they were taking somebody somewhere, that they handed them off to somebody else? I mean, that'd be kind of hard to do with as much media looking at this case. But I mean, past cases. Look at all of the unsolved red rums in Letcher County. You know, just have the 3 women. Those 3 women in Whitco area were within a 6-month period of time, or 6 months or a year between their red rums, but they were also within 6 miles of each other. Very suspicious. Very, just very suspicious. Then you have others. You have one in Neon that I reckon Mikey Dingus was supposed to be the one investigating it. Well, that was unsolved. And then you have the other one here in Jenkins, up at the apartments, that Jim Stevens was the one responsible for investigating. That one is also unsolved. So you have several, and those aren't the only ones. Those are just the ones off the top of my head. It would be hard to see a counselor and get close to a breakthrough, and you go back and the new counselor has to play catch up. Absolutely. That's what happens all the time because they have such a high turnover rate. They can't keep people in the counselor's position. I've been a substance abuse counselor. It is absolutely just awful. You're only going to make $30,000 a year. That's about base salary for a substance abuse counselor. And the way that my experience was, so they wanted you to start at 8:00 in the morning, and we did a lot of telehealth. So I could work from home, but I was on camera for all my sessions. From 8 to 9 is one counseling session. And then you've got one from 9 to 10. That's another counseling session. From 10 to 11. From 11 to 12. Then you get lunch from 12 to 1. And then your appointments start right back. So you have another session from 1 to 2. Next one from 2 to 3. 3 to 4. 4 to 5. 5 to 6. 6 to 7. Where's your breaks in there? And all you do is sit and talk 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 all day long. Talk about burnout. And they don't want to pay you very well. And they don't want to give you no breaks other than your lunch break. It sucked. That was an awful job. Sucked. But I was the good counselor. Every counselor I ever had, I had a lot of experience because I ended up counseling them every session. I'd leave there hearing all about their life. Very rarely did the counselor ever counsel me. This cat is getting educated. Love it. Well, welcome, honey. You stay right along with us and you'll be educated a lot more. There's so much corruption in that case. It's unbelievable. Well, that's what I'm saying. Where's the investigation? You can't look at this bunch of BS and say, oh, well, there wasn't nothing there for us to even look at. Really? You ain't coming out defending it. And in the past couple days, so much has come out about rotten evidence by CW. Yep. Smartest cat in town. Think what the network had to be to get people funneled into their program. Of course, they had people in each courtroom. Well, I'd like to hear them say that. I'd like to see how many community liaisons they had. Because he made good money. So that was a lot of money. If they got a lot of liaisons, then they had to pay them all the same. Or, I'm sure Letcher County got a percentage for each person sent. Watch out, that cat might be a double agent. FBI's investigating ARC. Yeah, do you think that Medicaid fraud investigation has bled over into Letcher County? Have they investigated any kickbacks? I'd just like to know. Retaliation and fear. Steins was terrified before his deposition. Who or what was he afraid of? Who do you all think he was afraid of? Do you think he was afraid of the judge? Because I'm not convinced that the judge was the head of the snake. Check Somerset, Kentucky as well for rehab. They have multiple places that include apartments on site and job services. The hospitals know the contacts for Somerset rehabilitation services. Yeah, the Independence House was in Corbin. And it was there for a long time. I'm sure it's probably still there. One of the things that a lot of the rehabs do, I know they did it 30 years ago, and I assume they still do it, just it's kind of changed over time because everything is trial and error, right? And the guidelines and the rules change on things all the time. But these rehabs, if you got food stamps, they take your food stamps while you're there to feed you. So the way that it used to work, they would load everybody up in a van like every Monday because, people come in all the time. So they would have a day, say every Monday. They take all the newbies, all the new people that have come. They take them to the food stamp office and they have them signed up on food stamps through their rehab. So the rehab used to, they took your food stamp card physically, like you had to physically give them your card. And then they would do all their shopping for the rehab with everybody's cards. Now I don't think that they do that anymore. It's, evolved time, technology. Now I think they still do that. I think they still take you down, or they might even have it now to where you don't have to go in person. I don't know, but they still sign you up on food stamps. Even if you're already signed up, they still will take you down there and have it set to where they get your food stamps. And then whenever you leave, they have to, change it back or give you your card back or whatever. Well, I heard that they weren't doing that at ARC. I heard that that was one of the things that was being investigated with the fraud was the food stamps. So I would like to see the outcome of that too. What all are they looking at? Because if people don't know, a lot of us, I've heard so many people say they don't want a counselor unless they've been there themselves. A lot of people would rather have a counselor who's also in recovery so they can understand. So whenever they're talking about trading schmecks for rugs, or whatever, they don't have to feel so, ashamed and embarrassed because this person that they're confessing this sin to has never even been there. They ain't never done anything like that. They've never, people have a harder time opening up about those kinds of things to people that have never been there. Anyway, I watched Jesse Weber summarize it, but still didn't catch all the details about CW. CW. I'm sitting here trying to put that in my head, and I still ain't. The light bulb has not come on yet. Y'all tell me who you're talking about. Unbelievable, but those would go on his record, and that would be important. What count did they leave on his final record? He was charged with I'll tell you. Give me just a second. I always get the one charge wrong. All right. He pled guilty to, he was charged with 44 indictments involving minors and SMECs. The plea agreement signed in May included a provision. Here, I'll read it for y'all. The plea agreement signed in May included a provision that the Commonwealth's attorney would not object to home incarceration for Little. Commonwealth's attorney, Matt Butler, who took office in July, recused himself from the case because of a conflict, and County Attorney Jamie Hatton is prosecuting it now because Matt Butler was his defense attorney on this very case before he became Commonwealth attorney. So, I don't know if it was, I think Daniel Dotson also represented him on this. The charge of first-degree sexual abuse is a Class C felony and carries a maximum penalty of up to 10 years in prison. The second sexual abuse charge was amended down from first-degree unlawful transaction with a minor. That's the one I can't ever remember. Illegal schmex acts, a Class B felony that carries a maximum penalty of up to 20 years in prison. This is their buddy. This is he's the prominent businessman who is their friend, who also was the college roommate of Judge Kevin Mullins. So if this explains how SMECS crimes in Letcher County are prosecuted, they dismissed 42 counts, and then the judge, I guess it must have been Jimmy Kraft. Had to have been Jimmy. I don't think he had a special judge. He just had a special prosecutor. And that wasn't even really a special prosecutor. They assigned the county attorney, who only does misdemeanors, to prosecute this case. But remember, he was the judge's college roommate. So he got off real easy. They gave him house arrest and work release for 5 years, for a 5-year felony sentence. Have you ever heard of that happening? Because I haven't. Did not spend one day in jail. Why is that not being investigated? Charlotte Jones. Hi, Elizabeth. I have been watching now for a long time. Well, good, honey. I am worried about retaliation against you. Well, they can't eat me. Sean Dameron, healthcare fraud. That's one of the biggest ones that they'll get you for. They'll let you go on all these other things, but Medicaid fraud, they're coming after you. They're going to put you under the jail for that. They don't care about nothing else. Defraud Medicaid, though. They coming. Who, what, when, where? FBI is investigating ARC, and the CEO just stepped down. It actually wasn't the CEO that stepped down, I don't think. It was Matt Brown. Matt Brown, I forget what his title was, but Tim Robinson is the CEO and founder of ARC. Matt Brown, forget what his title was, but I just read the article the other day, and he was a b-ball coach, wasn't he? I don't know which one you're talking about. See you later. What nasty, sick old pervos. I know. Sorry, Julie. Y'all, this is my full-time job. It's the only income I got right now. So, sorry. Power dynamic. Odd and out. I love your name. They sit up in church like fine folks on Sunday. You got that right, honey. How dare you? Honey, we got a whole bunch. They are dedicated to the Lions Club, I can tell you. And laundering money, hiding money, stealing, roguing. I could go on. Compromised. And when their kids or they get caught embezzling $250,000, nothing happens. They let them turn themselves in and bail out at the same time. And then they secretly or quietly give them probation and might tell them they got to pay some money back, some restitution. And nobody ever talks about it again. Nobody has the nards talk about it again. Because they're all sitting in the front row in church on Sunday morning. Those people that use God that way, God sees our hearts. He sees every one of us. He knows what we're going to do and what we're going to think before it even happens. I used to play cards in the student union in college, 25 cents a game. I won a lot of games. Some tables wouldn't let me sit with them. Well, good for you, honey. I love playing poker. I was always pretty good, too. I've noticed a lot of art commercials on YouTube. That's kind of crazy, ain't it? Hi, Angela. Cinnamon, hot, hot, hot. Yes, it is the vulnerable, is deplorable and gross. I'm putting a little strand of Christmas where I sit to try and change my terror feeling. Well, good for you, feeling. Good for you, honey. Good for you. The FBI has a tip line for ARC investigation. Yep, they've got a form. So all you have to do is just Google it, put FBI ARC form, tip form or whatever, and it'll come up. And it's a very easy little form. You just fill it out. Anything that you No, if you think that your insurance, if you feel like you were a victim of ARC, if they were overcharging your insurance, or if you noticed that they charged for services that they never did or that were never completed, or if you were an employee and you felt like you were done wrong or taken advantage of, anybody, if you know anything, let them know. Listen, I've learned a really hard lesson recently. I'm always afraid of upsetting somebody. Believe it or not. I'm always afraid I'm going to upset somebody. And I don't want to get nobody in trouble, you know. I think we've all been like that. But so, you know, you don't want to call 911 over every little thing, you know. So one of the things that I think most of us did, we just shoot a Facebook Messenger message to Mickey or somebody like Mickey, somebody in a similar position. If you were closer to Mikey Dingus, you might send Mikey a message. If you were closer to a cop in Whitesburg, you might send them a message. But in doing that, it doesn't create a record of your call that you needed help or that you were asking for help or whatever. So then later on, if you really need to show, you know, that this has been going on for a while or whatever, you don't have it to back up your claim or whatever. So I kind of learned a hard lesson with that. You got to call 911. You got to make those calls that will be documented. I don't even know where I got that from, but sorry, y'all. It's all right, Indy girl, honey. That's all right. We've been on here almost 2 hours. All the land they have scooped up. Yes, yes, yes. That's another part of the ARC story. So they started out with one sober living house or something, or rehab, but it was a small facility. It was a one property, one building, whatever, one rehab. And in 3 years or 5 years, you become the leading recovery center in the state, making $130 million just in Medicaid reimbursements for last year. That's a lot of money, y'all. He is a lawyer by trade. His story says he was an alcoholic. He turned to alcohol after his mommy died. He was an alcoholic going to work. I guess it was a bailiff that led him to the Lord one day on a hangover. And now he's a preacher. Well, you got to be careful. Not everybody that speaks the name of Jesus is good. You know, not everybody who comes in my name did I send. I know that's not the exact quote, but you got to be careful. People pretend to come as angels of light, but wolves are in sheep's clothing. When I was at Karen's place in Louisa, they said that the Lane House people were throwing rugs across the fence. Well, I'm sure that could probably happen anywhere. You know, if you got the right patients, got the right connections, that could happen in any facility. But anyway, and it's competition too. I can remember people coming to meetings with a paper they needed signed to prove they went. Yep. but I don't remember seeing them after they were made to go. That's right. How often does that happen? Once they get out, a lot of people don't make it. And I'm not putting it down. Yeah, we need treatment. We need treatment. We need recovery facilities. But did they put the process together in a way that was going to be mostly beneficial for the people that they are saying that they're trying to recover? Recovery is up to us. People can lead us to water, but they can't make you drink, right? The horse lead the horse to water, but you can't make him drink. You can force all kinds of people to go to rehab, but it's only going to take if the person really wants it. Or, if a miracle happens. How much money? What is the cost for this? And is there a cheaper way, or is there a way that it would be less expensive for the taxpayer and more beneficial for the actual defendant? Like, I get the point that we were starting to, as a court system, we were trying to incarcerate ourselves out of the opioid crisis, and that did not work. Absolutely, it did not work. But it also didn't you still have a whole lot of crime, but the crime is different now. Like before, when everybody was on opioids, there was high numbers of theft. You had a lot of property crime because people would steal things and sell them to go get their money, to get their fix. Nowadays, I think those crimes are changing. I don't think you have so much as much property crime and theft as you do maybe damage or rug reeling. I don't think people go through the same kind of sickness and withdrawal off of the math the same way that you had people coming off OCs. It was a different substance. It was a different withdrawal. It was a different time. And it was a different, it was a different consequence. It was a different outcome. But, there's no easy fix to any of this stuff. ARC spoke of the Lane House terrible because they wanted their clients. And I'd like to see the numbers. How many defendants from Letcher County were ever sent to these other places? How many people was Judge Mullins sending to the Lane House? How many people got to go to the Chrysalis House? How many people got to go to the Independence House versus ARC? Were they exclusively sending their people to ARC? Or, was it like this? This many people went to ARC and this many people went to the Lane House. I just wonder what the disparity is on that. Meetings people, helping people, yet politicians are collecting a lot of funding. Slushy funding. Oh, yeah. And you also got to think of all the grants. What about all of the federal funding? And see, like ARC is a for-profit company. They're not a non-profit. But Heal, Van Breedings, baby, the Heal organization, is a nonprofit. And they're the ones that went around and got everybody's opioid settlement money from Letcher County. They went right around to all of these city council meetings and all they had to do was ask for it. And by golly, they just turned right around and gave it to them. No questions asked. Didn't look like to me. And what are they supposed to do with it? Teach law enforcement what? You're exactly right, Elizabeth. My brother would go to his NA meetings and meet someone there, and before you knew it, they were both doing drugs again. This cycle played out several times. Yeah, and it always will. It's just a harsh reality of it. I do wish that Casey's Law was promoted more through commercials for the ones that have lost all hope of getting their loved one help. And the Casey's Law does help, if you have a loved one, a family member who needs help, and refuses to get it, is going down a very dangerous road, is a danger to themselves or others. You can go petition a judge in your county for Casey's Law. And what that is the judge will hear, listen to your concerns and whatever. They'll go pick your loved one up and hold them in jail until there's a bed available in a rehab. And until they agree to go to that rehab, they get held in jail. And a lot of people would rather be in rehab than jail. If you got a choice, you'd rather be in rehab. So city and county law enforcement agencies conspired against him. I don't know what that was in reference to, y'all. Sorry. Thank you, Miss Brenda. Thank you. Can't end yet. I just got here. Good to have you here, Genevieve. Extreme Blonde. Thank you. With all the goings on, how far do you think the rabbit hole in Letcher County goes? I think it goes very, very far. I do. I think that we are going to see some jaw. If the truth comes out, I think we'll see some jaw dropping accusations and claims. I've already heard some myself. And one part of this circle is just now starting to come out. Just now. So we've got what I was saying earlier about the open secrets. You've got a lot that wasn't necessarily a secret. It was open for everybody to know and everybody to talk about. Honey, this lawyer is proud of himself. He is one of them macho, slick his hair back with these comb, look like Elvis without the sideburns. Ladies' man. I mean, people have just got to have, their head has got to be swelled out so bad that they can't even fit through my front door. The egos on people. Well, I've never been a drug addict. I'm just a hardcore pervert. Is that something to be proud of? No, thank you, dude. No, thank you. No, thank you. But also in the dash cam, the driver said he was not handing him off to anyone but Leslie, and the other car was just showing them the way. Interesting. I didn't hear that. Interesting. Mom says that there's 2 ways into that jail. There's 2 roads. So he could have, but I've also been told that Mickey Steins and this new jail, or the jailer at the Leslie County Jail, so apparently he's been there a long time, that jailer. Like he's not new to the jailer role over there. Apparently he's been there for quite some time. And there have been many inmates that have been transferred back and forth between Letcher County and Leslie County Jail over the years. So I was told not to believe or think that they were not friends, that they were, in fact, friends, Mickey Steins and the Leslie County jailer. Now, I had not heard anything bad about him. I'd heard really wonderful things about him and his wife. But I found out today there have been many accusations made against that jailer over there. And accusations have been made to police officers who wrote down the accusations. I'm not going to say what they are right now, or what they have been. But, it seems like this immoral abuse of women sexually, I think my mom hit it right on the head. It's an epidemic. It's cultural, or at least I think it is. I think that the boys will be boys mentality, that they can kind of just do whatever that they want to do because, number one, they've got the right last name. They were born into the right family. They have the right jobs. They have the right positions, and they have all the money. They've never been told no. They never had to pay the consequences of their actions because somebody always comes in and bails them out. And it's the community that reacts to these things. When Patrick Little was charged and he went through his whole thing, well, I reckon a whole lot of people turned against him. I mean, it's child momos don't have a really good time when they go to jail, I mean, people who are on the sex offender registry, people aren't looking them up online to go be their best friend. They're trying to protect their kids. And, why? Because a lot of that behavior is not fixable. We know that. There ain't no treatment for that. Somebody's got a sicko thought in their brain about little kids. Well, I don't think there's any therapy for that. I don't think that there's a counselor or a medicine that takes that away. Look here. Cinnamon, hot, hot, hot. No accountability. The Alexander brothers, Diddy, Epstein are all examples of the same. You stumbled into this, Elizabeth, but you learned it's the lawyers. Absolutely. Well, when the Diddy story came out and they kept telling about how the lawyers wrote up the non-disclosure agreements, I had a lawyer write one up again for me to sign. And I told him I'm signing it, but I'm signing it under duress. And as a lawyer, that it ain't going to hold up because you cannot put an NDA to cover up any kind of criminal activity. Won't work. It's not going to hold up in the court of law. When you got but if you've got people who don't know any better, who don't know no different, yeah, he didn't know I had an education like what I've got. I know exactly what was going on. And people think that you don't. People think that you're stupid or that you're unaware or ignorant, unlearned, uneducated. You go to a cop for help or a prosecutor, lawyer, and you tell them what you need their help with, and they try to give you some BS answer that ain't even true, that ain't accurate, and you know it. Well, if you didn't know it, you're going to take what they say to you and believe it. You're going to believe they're telling you the truth because they're a lawyer. They're a prosecutor. They're a police officer. They're not going to lie. They're not going to do anything unethical. Oh, BS. They ain't. So it's really important that we have people that do good. I mean, I don't even know. Y'all know any? I mean, it's sad. So you got all these lawyers that were protecting Diddy, protecting Epstein, protecting the Alexander brothers. You just keep on going. Our courthouse in Letcher County protected by lawyers. They're all attorneys. And they offer you to say it day. That's right. Like it's some kind of a award. Here's your reward. I'm going to let you hook me up today. The unbelievable part is that's what these people actually do. It's how they actually talk. Before you know it, they're already pulling a zipper down, like I'm telling you, this happens so many times that you just would not believe it. I swear I sat here all summer thinking how boring my little town was. Then come this Hillbilly Elizabeth. After this, I'm thanking the good Lord I talk to my dogs more than people. Honey, that's right. I got 3 big dogs and 4 cats, and I get along a lot better with my animals. Yay, extreme blonde. Go educated women. I worked hard for mine, man. I worked really hard for mine. I know you worked really hard for yours. One thing about it, they can't never take it away from us. When did we start allowing cops and lawyers to lie? The beginning of the end. Yeah, but think about it. Cops are always allowed to lie. They're allowed to lie in any kind of interview. They're allowed to lie in any kind of investigation. They're allowed to trick. They're allowed to mislead. And they do. Very much. And what's a lawyer for? They're to help you stay out of trouble. They're to help you get out of trouble. And if you have a business or something, you have a personal attorney, look at all these lawyers that are Murdaugh. That old Murdaugh man stole millions and millions and millions of dollars from his clients. I got on the Bradshaw. Let me find it. I looked up Daniel Dotson I just Googled him just to see what all I could find about him. And I found, like the Yelp, they had a couple of reviews, performance reviews of him. And I also found, yeah, there it is. That's the reviews. That's the Martindale lawyers. Bird's Eye. It was B&D. I think D&B. Let me see if this is it. Yep. Dun and Bradstreet. I think this is like a credit or something. So it's got Daniel Dotson, 178 Main Street, Whitesburg, Kentucky. And then it has, let me see. It had his income that he had claimed. Here it is. Annual revenue. $263,643. Now, I don't know if that's self-reported, but it's on his business info on his page. Dun and Bradstreet, Daniel Dotson. And then right here, annual revenue. Put it over here. Annual revenue. See it? $263,643. Employee count, 3. So it's like a business thing. Well, I don't know if that's self-reported, if that is annual revenue. Is that the same thing as income? I don't know. But I think he makes a whole lot more than that. Just saying. Public info, y'all. I swear she already said that. Under duress. I'll keep that knowledge in my back pocket. I hope I never need it. Tap on wood. That's right. That's right. Ew. My lawyer saved Graceland for Riley Kiao. Yes, that's great. We heard about that. Somebody filed a false deed or something on Graceland, and honey, they was getting ready to steal it right out from underneath them. And you know Pig Latin. I try. I think they get drunk with power. It's all power. It's all control. And if you challenge them or criticize them, I've been criticized a lot in my life. Haven't you all been criticized? Your job performance. I've never had a job where they just pat me on the back all day, every day. And we always have ceremonies, and we always are giving people awards and rewards. And it looks to me like that's all law enforcement does. Here, let me give you an award here. I was trying to put pictures together for the thumbnail today. Yeah, Edison Banks been given some award, and him one of the not a good person, not a good prosecutor, in my opinion. But he is getting a big award, And I thought it was very ironic. There he was with I guess his ex-wife and his kids, his daughters. I think he's got 2 girls. There he is with his family when he's getting this award. But who did he give his power of attorney to when he was sick? He gave it to Taylor Pratt, his little home health nurse aide who was running around 3 counties in his official prosecutor Commonwealth attorney vehicle, running rugs all around the counties, getting stopped with rugs, not getting any charges. And now that he's died, she's fighting for his estate because he gave her power of attorney. How do you think his kids feel about that? How do you think his ex-wife feels about that? And yet this 20-some-year-old hot thing that he had recommended to him, that's unbelievable to me. Anyway, they're all getting awards. You got Tim Robinson getting the Beacon of Hope Award. The governor giving Michael Clark a big pardon. And he's had the red carpet rolled out for him everywhere he goes. Just blows me away. Did he go to school? Did he get any education? Did he do anything with his life besides get out of prison? Because all he did was get on attorney's camera on his phone and start preaching. And all these preachers, you don't go from being a big time sinner one day to being up on the stage with a microphone preaching to sinners the next. There's got to be some kind of a learning curve in there somewhere or something, But some of these people have what's called the gift of gab. And if you got the gift of gab, you can get really, really far. You'd be a really good used car salesman because you start padding that piper and all of them start following until the mask starts to slip. Once that mask starts to slip, you start getting little, I don't know if I like that or not. Alex Murdaugh was connected to Hilton Head Island strip clubs, to what they all like. Yeah. That don't surprise me none. And the gambling, Playing cards, they can lose a lot of money in one night. They can lose a lot of money in one hand. People pay to be listed in Dun and Bradstreet. Good to know. It's all self-reported. Good to know. On your birth certificate. Well, that's what's on his. I don't know what the date was, if there was like a date or anything on there. But honey, he charges that in retainer for a big case. When you Google somebody, slide the bar from all images, news to forums. There's a bit more stuff there usually. Thank you. See you later. Thank you. Don't believe that's all his business makes. I don't either. I was shocked when I saw that. I was like, what? That's like Mickey Steins up there saying his property's worth $45,000 at the PDA office. It's on file at the PDA office for $45,000. False POA like my own lawyer. Yes, they do. Epstein's lawyers are elite. And that's what I was saying. So when you've got lawyers who are protecting your criminal enterprise, when you have lawyers who have created their own criminal enterprise through the court system, how's that not organized crime? How come they can't go in and investigate the money laundering? Because that's what I said a long time ago. I thought it was at the basis of all of it. Follow the money, follow the money, follow the money. Because everybody's greedy. I don't have a damn thing. I don't have nothing. When you've lost everything and you don't have anything, you get humbled. You know, people who've never lost anything and they just keep, you know, they're some people are givers and some people are takers. And if you're a taker and you're just taking, take, and that's all you've ever done, you ain't never given nobody anything, really, you end up having a real big ego. And you're usually really arrogant because you've never been humbled right real good. Example, Patrick Little, when he got charged with all these charges, nobody talked about it. Nobody. You didn't hear a whisper. You didn't hear nothing. Nobody was talking because he was everybody's friend. He worked with people. He was a friend to a lot of people. He's a prominent businessman. He did all of the music for Jenkins Days festivals. He worked with all the different little towns on music stuff. His music store is it's a big business. Well, he didn't like the fact that I did a story on it. I did a show on his charges and swears up and down he's innocent. And he did nothing wrong. Absolutely nothing. And he couldn't help it that his lawyer recommended that he sign the plea deal, because if he takes it to trial, he's facing 20 years. If he goes to trial, he could get 20 years. If he signs the plea bargain, he ain't got to go to jail not one day. But yet they have evidence of your guilt, and you are signing a guilty plea. I mean, you didn't sign it no contest. You didn't plead no contest. I don't know what happened. I don't know the details of that situation. I have absolutely no idea. You know why? Because they have not printed it nowhere. Not one time has any details of that case been revealed. Nowhere. And we're not asking for victims' information. We know better than that. We don't want no names. I just want to know, what was he indicted on? You give us the information on any other cases, why not his? Was it text messages? Was it pictures? Was it actual contact? I don't know, but I'd like to know the answers to these questions. Because I do know that people around here that are innocent do get charged. Absolutely. They do. I've seen it. I've been one of them. So, you know, sometimes maybe I jump to conclusions too fast, but I've seen it when they didn't have any evidence, and they didn't sign a plea bargain for that. They dropped the charges because there was no evidence. There was nothing there. His case was a little bit different. They dropped the charges, or the counts, but they still kept 2 counts on both of those charges. I don't believe that they would have done that. And him being their college buddy and their good friend, I don't think that they would have done that. They're not going to let an innocent man sign a plea bargain that's their best buddy when they know that they don't even have the evidence against them anyway. Like, I don't buy that. I do not buy that. Don't buy it. But how are the people in the community supposed to respond? Chitwood of Florida is a poser. We got a lot of them, honey. Chris Hansen backed down when he caught the Texas DA, right? Because the Texas DA was like Judge Mullins. Well, that's a good comment. She got busted with every kind of thing. I think I know which case you're talking about, too. Forgery of power of attorney document being investigated. Well, from what I understand, he really gave it to her. Because think about it. She was probably his he was probably her sugar daddy. Allegedly. That's what they are. That's what we're talking about here. You know. Texas DA Bill Condat was caught by Chris Hansen, so they canceled the show because they caught our own leaders. Interesting. Prison Jesus, or more commonly known as the Catfish Jesus. Yikes. 62 on my patio in Florida. And there was a Red Rum connected to the same Hilton Head Island strip club connected to Mafia and Alex Murdaugh's good friends. Don't surprise me none. Children in Detroit. 46 degrees in Indiana. What is it here in Kentucky? Let me see. It is 39. I was out with no coat today. It's a heat wave. No. So you think Mickey's lawyers are hiding his assets? No, Lord, no. No. I ain't saying nothing like that. I just think that if they've got his property, if he's making $115,000 a year and she makes probably, I'm guessing, 60 to 80,000 a year, and their house, their property is only 45,000. You believe that? They're fancy people. I mean, they're not fancy. They're hillbilly just like we are, but they're still fancy people. We've seen pictures of their house on Facebook, and you see pictures of everybody's house on Facebook. They have a nice place. 45 grand. I just don't believe it. But that's just me. That's just my opinion. I could be completely wrong. I hope I am. Unless Mickey was given the assessed evaluation on the land tax statement, I think he's listed as a third value. Well, I mean, I'm just saying. Like the Panama Papers and the like, the international bribery and money laundering that was legal everywhere until recently. Listen, the article that I just saw yesterday of Steve Beshear, our now governor's daddy, who's also the one who appointed Judge Mullins, I might add, to the district court. He was tied up in a great big old scandal in India because, well, I don't even want to try to rehash what it was. A really long article. But Steve Beshear ain't no innocent either. And that's with coal or something. Janis Joplin said freedom was just another word for nothing to lose, left to lose. Only in certain circumstances, it appears. Janis Joplin is my favorite music to sing. Loves me some Joplin. Me and Bobby McGee, baby. My favorite song. Police officer in Louisville showed his dinger donger to a lady officer, worked with her, If I had $1 for every time somebody tried to show me their dinger donger in a very inappropriate way, I'd be able to retire. Maybe not. Maybe not that many. But man, it sure seems like I've come across a lot of sickos in this world. But I stay home these days now. Kind of like my point when we first started this tonight. When I was talking about the men and they get older and their libido kind of dies down, and they've already gotten their jollies over their power and control. So they may not be doing it as much now as what they did 20 years ago. Well, I think the same thing. Same kind of thing. I don't go out. I don't drink. I don't go to bars. Don't run around. The only time I stay home all the time, even when I was working, I work from home. I work from my computer. I sit in this chair and I stay home and I work. Or I go to a ball game with my kids. We're always going to practice. We always going to ball games. I'm always going to pick up their friend players, and we take them home after practice. And I usually end up feeding a big bunch of kids. That's all I do. So there ain't no risk of them pulling me over for a DUI or, something like that. I don't put myself in those positions anymore because I'm old. I'm 48. So I'm old. I've done got my kicks way back when. My wild days are over. So that I don't worry so much anymore, about them messing with me. The only way they'd mess with me now is if something happened and it gave them the opportunity to. But it was 47 in Denver today. We made it through this freeze. Do you remember the case against Harlan Sheriff Marvin J. Lipford? I sure do, Jerry. And Roger Hall. Roger Hall was a deputy in Harlan County. One of my girlfriends had a kid with Roger Hall. I think she ended up marrying somebody else, and they raised the kid, I think. But he was a sheriff's deputy, and I think he was married when he got that girl pregnant. I could be wrong about that, but I think he was. Been a long time. But he got caught, Roger Hall did, trying to red rum a candidate for sheriff. The guy did get red rummed. And it was one of our friends' dad. A boy that we all grew up with. It was his daddy that was, and the ironic part was back in the 80s, his daddy had served like a 10-year prison sentence for conspiracy to red rum and somebody that was running for office. There's a long history of this kind of stuff in this area. Sheriff Marvin J. Lipford was the sheriff of Harlan County, and he got in trouble over money and a bunch of stuff. I don't even want to try and say what all it was, rugs and all kinds of stuff. And I'm pretty sure he did it all within like 5 years or something, wasn't it? Like he did it all really fast. He hadn't been sheriff for a long time. like in 2008, when the CEO of Bay Systems was arrested for bribery, because that is what they all do. Well, funny you should say that Patrick Little that I was just talking about, the judge's college roommate, he also has a charge, a conviction. It wasn't just a charge, he was convicted of it on his record, and it was for bribery. But I don't know what the details of that were. Who did he try to bribe? When did he do it? I don't know. What was it about? I'd like to know. But he does have a conviction for bribery on his record, so. In the case of Brian Koberger and Karen Reed, they must continue the sham, lie, and never stop. Yep. God can humble you real quick. If they don't pay here on earth, they will pay one day. Reap what you sow. Amen, Miss Wanda. Amen. Of course, sugar daddy, like OnlyFans, the business becomes the daddy, the sale, the exploitation. Soon the children are the prey. Thank you, honey. Thank you, because that's right. Then pontoon parties are expensive. A boy's got to eat. That's a large income in the position that might as well be city council. Well, it's crazy. Why do they do that? Ain't none of them cute. Amen. The Foreign Corrupt Practices Act was just enacted in 1977. Until then, bribery was legal, so Rolls Royces were traded like tips. Women too, of course. Just ask if they have seen a doctor for that yet. How many likes we got up there? I bet we didn't even come close to our 1,000, did we, guys? You might get rich doing what you're doing, Elizabeth. Keep it up. Then you can travel. Well, that sure would be nice, wouldn't it? I told y'all I made enough money last month to pay my bills, and I was hoping this month I'd make enough for us to eat. I ain't got there yet. I'm still hovering over the bills part. Hopefully, you just keep praying. I'm going to speak that into existence. Amen. You'll never regret the time you spent with the kids and the friends. At least you know where your kids are. They will love you for that forever. I was a child that was bounced back and forth between my mom and dad. And I spent a lot of time with other people. My mom was a single mom. She was trying to work. You know, she didn't get food stamps or anything like that back then. If we ate or had a roof over our head or had heat, it was because she had to work. And, you know, she had a hard time. So, I was kind of a latchkey kid, I guess, in some ways. And just trauma, childhood trauma, I'm telling you, I had enough of it. So when I had my kids, I was very different. My kids have maybe spent the night with other people, and until recently. They're 13 and 14 now, so they kind of stay with their ball playing friends some now. But when they were little, they didn't stay with nobody. Nobody. I could count on one hand how many times they stayed with my mom, my own mom. Never. Nobody. Because the exposure is what's so important. It's the exposure to drugs. It's the exposure to alcohol. It's the exposure to sexual activity. little kids don't need to see nothing like that. They don't need to be exposed. If we're parents, yeah, it's a part of life. Parents are going to do it. Be responsible. If you're going to do it, be responsible. Don't be doing it in front of your kids. Don't be doing it where they can see you. Don't be doing it where they can hear you. I'm not real modest around mine, but I don't go walking, naked in front of my kids. They don't see. No. They were not exposed to any kind of pornographic pay material. They didn't ever see or hear or know anything about any of that stuff. And I got some good kids. And I'm sure it's not only because of that, but if they're never exposed to anything, then they don't even know about it. Like there's little kids that are like 6, or maybe not 6. I don't know how old that little kid is. He's probably 8 or 9. That kid's got a bigger vocabulary than mine does. And they're 13 and 14. And he knows the meaning of what he's saying. Like he's really advanced. Worldly. He's just a little old kid. How do you think he got that way? Because he's hearing him at home. It's that same thing I was saying the other night. That woman's tongue in the back of her kid's head, right out his mouth. They repeat what they hear us say. Are you a UK basketball fan? You can't live in Kentucky. I'll tell you a real quick little story. Don't ever do it. I was in Lexington. I knew nothing about basketball years and years and years ago. I had borrowed a blue and white Duke sweatshirt from somebody, and I wore it to an NA meeting. Lexington. I didn't think I was going to get out of that meeting alive. I thought they was going to whoop me good. I thought they was all going to whoop me good because that's UK country. And there I was wearing a blue and white Duke sweatshirt. I just thought it was pretty. I didn't know it was that serious. And that was my introduction into UK basketball. I learned you can't live in Kentucky and not be a UK fan. They might run you out. Someone had tried to walk off that. It's a long walk in the middle of nowhere. I guess I missed what? The Ozarks? Maybe. You need a buy me a coffee account. Yeah, I do. I don't know how to do that. Anybody know how to do that? Let me know. And I'm also going to let you know, me and Mama Duck was talking on the phone today, and I think what we are going to do is we're going to do a show on civics, but we're also going to do a show on a few other things. I better not say anything about it. I better let Mama Duck give us that introduction. But so if you are not a member and you want to be a member, we're going to do all kinds of members only stuff. If you can't afford to be a member and you still want to be, part of the show, you want to be part of the Discord, you still have the opportunity to do that. Just send me an email to hillbillycrime@gmail.com, and we will give you a little, we'll give you a job that you can help us with Discord or whatever. And that way you can still be part of our Discord. We've got several. Oh, thank you, Miss Christie. Bless you. Keep up the good work, Miss Elizabeth. You are the only one reporting in depth on Kentucky and the M. Mickey Steins case. Thanks. Thank you, Christy. Bless you, bless you, bless you. Let's see, Wanda. I've been there before as a single mother. It's rough when you have to be a mom and dad. Yeah, and it's lonely too, you know. It is. But I work too hard to take care of someone who is, you know, I'm almost 50. So that means, you know, whoever I partnered up with would be an old man. I don't want to take care of a deadbeat old man. I don't. No, I ain't no sugar mama. Ain't happening. Ain't happening. I've already got 3 kids, but 2 little ones. I don't need a 50-year-old man-child. Ah, sorry, y'all. I forgot what I was saying. I'm getting goofy. It's late. I'm tired. My kids are just 4 and 6. They are victims like the Diddy victims in Florida. They were sodomed by George in Key Largo. Oh. Bless you, honey. Well, our prayers are with you and your kids. Somebody said today that we had somebody said today that not a cougar that one of the things about this channel that was so important is that it's offering a platform and a voice to a lot of the women and the women in this area who have been victims of sexual abuse or by whoever. And many people don't want to tell it. You know, they want to talk about it, but they can't talk to their counselors because we have we have a whole lot of crappy counselors around here. Sorry, but we do, that have no idea what they're doing. They just show up. As long as they have their telehealth on from 1 to 2, they get paid. Doesn't matter what is said. You know what I mean? We just don't have great mental health help. Or you have somewhere like MCHC down there who also has a MAC clinic, but their counselors all work like they're part of they're part of that. So I seriously doubt that they could talk freely to their counselors and then not have it come back on them in some way. But maybe not, but but a lot of people have trouble finding competent mental health counseling that's effective. So if anybody needs a shoulder, or if anybody needs an ear, or you want to share your story or your struggle, send me an email. We'll be your support system. Absolutely. You're always welcome here. I'm not a cat. I'm about as late as possible. Rewind for replay. Absolutely. Yep, we're getting ready to jump off. Been there, done that. Got the t-shirt. As soon as we get our shop up and going, y'all, you'll have the Hillbilly Crime t-shirt. Oh, yeah. We might. Mama Duck's writing us a theme song, too. I may even have to break out the Never Leave Harlan Alive or something. Put us a little Janis Joplin in there. Oh, that would be so fun, wouldn't it? Ooh, get some mountain soul. uh, I have seen you and Joel Waldman. The document. I'm not sure. Lisbeth, you're not just helping women in the county, you're helping women all over the world, as we can listen. Thank you. Sure is a God thing, because I didn't plan any of this. God's timing's always perfect. Trust it. That's sad if you need counseling for SA and can't find the counseling. And it's not just that. Most SA leads to addiction, trauma, PTSD, alcohol, some kind of self-medicating behavior. And so it's very rarely just for one thing. Most of us. Listen, there's only... I was told a long time ago that hole inside of me was God-shaped. And I was trying to stick and shove anything and everything in it. And nothing fit because it's God-shaped. The only thing that fit in there was God. That was right. You ended up counseling your counselor. It's scary. I know. They should have paid me. Should have paid me. Check on what you think Ben said at end of interview with detective about sheriffs. Doesn't know about his dealings in his ankle bracelet job. I think I know what you're talking about when he said that he didn't do it as part of the sheriff's department. Yeah, if you're talking about what I'm thinking of, he tried to distance himself and what he did from the sheriff's department and Mickey. He tried really, really hard to distance them. But he's driving his deputy vehicle, sheriff's department vehicle. He's driving it out to their house where he's then having schmecks with them behind the church in his deputy vehicle. He admitted to doing it, having schmecks with these women in the bathroom in the courthouse and in the elevator of the courthouse, as well as the judge's chambers and his sheriff's vehicle. I think he was trying his best to be that sacrificial lamb. But I don't think it's going to work. Yeah. Good night, y'all. I keep saying I'm going to hang it up. All right. Well, you all have a great rest of your evening. Stay warm, stay safe. We'll see you tomorrow. Peace out, Girl Scout. Bye.